Chris Hansen here of Hansen vs. Predators. To catch a predator and have a seat with Chris Hansen, I'm going to need all of you to have a seat right over there because I've been going through some transcripts and there's something you need to know. You're watching TTFT. I'll be watching as well.
All right, Durden. So what are we covering today?
Oh, only the greatest movie ever of all time, Ghostbusters.
Oh shit, get the pro time packs ready, baby.
Yeah, you ready to take some notes?
Let's do it.
All right, let's run this thing.
Ow!
I guess she's not been in...
This has got to be the dumbest thing you've done. No, trust me, this is going to be awesome. If I can get an actual ghost to show up in this episode, that shit'll go viral. Alright. Hey, there's two right there.
You know this is all your fault, right? Had you just put in the male Ghostbusters, we wouldn't be dead right now.
I mean, technically, then, it's the female's fault.
Just ugly little spuds, aren't they? No, wait, I know those guys. Durden, Royal, what the fuck are you doing? Aren't you supposed to be hosting a show today?
We tried to watch Ghostbusters, ended up watching the all-female one, and it killed us, you know. Hey, when did you start smoking?
Since we died, we're dead. Fuck does it matter? I'm gonna tell you one other thing. If we don't get to meet Lord Vigo, I'm gonna be pissed.
Jesus Christ, I'm never doing that again. What is up, internets? JamesMCD Reviews here. If you couldn't tell by that cold open, Durden and Royal are under the weather at the moment, so I'm going to be taking over this very special episode of TTFT. This is going to be a pretty crazy one. In this episode, we are going to be covering all three Ghostbusters movies. The new one just came out this past weekend, Ghostbusters Afterlife. I got a chance to see it. I really loved it. So what better time than now to go back and revisit the original classic that everyone loves, and Ghostbusters 2, and see how this new one stacks up. A little later on in the episode, I'll be chatting with two members of the Windy City Ghostbusters. They're a Chicago-based Ghostbusters charity organization. Very excited for you guys to see that. It's a very great conversation. We got a lot to get into, so let's just jump right in with We Do Our Research. The original Ghostbusters released in June of 1984. The sequel would be released 5 years later in June of 1989, and after multiple pushbacks and delays, Ghostbusters Afterlife was released November 19th, 2021. Movies released around the time of the original include Gremlins, The Karate Kid, Star Trek: Search for Spock, Robin Williams' Moscow on the Hudson, and Poochie. I don't care, I'm leaving that in. As for the sequel, movies released at that time include Batman, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, Karate Kid Part 3, speaking of basically copying the original, and Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing. And finally, movies released around the time of Afterlife include House of Gucci, Disney's Encanto, Red Notice, and Marvel's The Eternals. The first two Ghostbusters movies were directed by Ivan Reitman, who also directed Father's Day, Kindergarten Cop, and Meatballs. Keeping with the new film's theme of passing the torch, Ghostbusters Afterlife was directed by Ivan's son, Jason Reitman, who also directed Juno from 2007, as well as 2018's Tully. First two movies' casts are iconic at this point. Leading the film are Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd as Ray Stantz, Harold Ramis as Egon Spengler, Ernie Hudson as Winston Zedmore, Sigourney Weaver as Dana, Rick Moranis as Lewis, Annie Potts as Janine, and rounding off with a few one-off characters, we have William Atherton as Walter Peck, Slavitsa Jovan as Gozer, definitely butchered that name, Peter McNichol as Janos, and Willem von Omberg as Vigo. Ghostbusters Afterlife features appearances by several legacy characters, but features a brand new cast including Finn Wolfhard as Trevor, McKenna Grace as Phoebe, Logan Kim as Podcast, Celestia O'Connor as Lucky, Carrie Coon as Callie, and Paul Rudd as Mr. Gruberson. Filming for the original movie began October 1983 and concluded February 1984. The first two films were shot in New York City and Los Angeles, California. All the exterior shots and iconography you see in the background actually exist. They're in New York, such as the Hook and Ladder, Firehouse, Tavern on the Green, City Hall. All of those things are actually real that you can go and visit. But all of the interior shots, like the inside of the firehouse and Dana's apartment, they were all shot on a soundstage in LA. For Ghostbusters Afterlife, filming began July of 2019, and the film was primarily shot in Alberta, Canada. Looking at the budget and box office, the first film had an estimated budget of $30 million and went on to gross over $290 million worldwide. The sequel's estimated budget was $37 million, and it brought in a total worldwide gross of $215 million. And I wasn't actually able to find a concrete budget for Afterlife. None of the sources that I was looking at had like a definitive answer. All right, so I'm recording this a couple days later, and it turns out they did officially release the budget for Ghostbusters Afterlife. It is $75 million. Now back to the video. And at the time I'm recording this, Ghostbusters Afterlife's opening weekend numbers have just come in. And it's already made 60 million worldwide, and it's currently sitting at number 44 at the worldwide box office for 2021. But again, that's most likely going to increase over the next few weeks. And that's everything you need to know about the Ghostbusters trilogy. And moving swiftly along with Lord Royal's blessing, all hail the undisputed king of connections, we're going to jump right into connections. All right, guys, it's time for connections. I was able to find quite a few when going over these movies. The first one I have up here is from the first one, and it's the terror dogs are actually foreshadowed long before they come to life. They're constantly looming over top of Dana's apartment. You can see them like looking over her when she's like walking into the building. But it even goes further than that, because the lion statues outside the library I took to be as kind of an extra bit of subtle foreshadowing for what was going to happen later on. This one might be just me kind of hearing things, but when Peter is knocking on the door when he goes to visit Dana after she's been possessed, it kind of sounds like he's knocking the Terminator theme. Like, it's weird. Like, it kind of sounds like, or something like that. It's a weird thing to draw from because Terminator hadn't come out yet. So unless Bill Murray's a time traveler, which is very much possible, there's no way that he could have known about that. But it would make sense when you consider the whole theme of like Judgment Day and the conversation that Ray and Winston have on the drive home in an earlier scene.
I remember Revelation 7:12. And I looked as he opened the sixth seal, and behold, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became as black as sackcloth, and the moon became as blood. Judgment Day. Judgment Day.
This next one is from Ghostbusters 2. On Peter's show, World of the Psychic, his guest kind of predicts the future. She says that the world will end on
February 14th in the year 2016.
Valentine's Day.
Now, this could all just be coincidence, but Paul Feig's Ghostbusters reboot was released July 11th, 2016. And if you want to go even further than that, the official trailer was uploaded in March of 2016. So, I mean, in a way, she was a little bit off, but she got close enough. This is another one from Ghostbusters 2. I connected Ghostbusters and Blues Brothers, both of them being movies with Dan Aykroyd in them. Both of them containing some sort of form of John Belushi, because obviously John Belushi stars in Blues Brothers and Ghostbusters. The current version that we know was written after John Belushi died, and everyone on set referred to Slimer as the ghost of John Belushi. And the Scoleri brothers, who appear in the courtroom scene, are actually modeled after the Blues Brothers. Here's a side-by-side comparison if you'd like to take a look for yourself. And a couple from Ghostbusters Afterlife. Finn Wolfhard finally fulfills his destiny of becoming a Ghostbuster. If you guys remember, if you've watched Stranger Things in season 2, it was set in 1984, which is when Ghostbusters would have come out. And in the Halloween episode, all the kids dressed up as Ghostbusters. And what I found really interesting when looking back at the episode in preparation for this was Finn's character, Mike, dressed up as Venkman, but in the movie, he's the grandson of Egon. And my last one here is Ant-Man was busting ghosts before Paul Rudd. If you guys remember in Ant-Man and the Wasp, the villain that they were hunting was referred to as Ghost because of her ability to phase through walls and turn invisible and all that stuff. So technically, Ant-Man was a Ghostbuster before Paul Rudd. And this is even added on further because in the scene where Paul Rudd goes into Walmart, where's the first aisle that he goes to? He goes to get a pint of Baskin Robbins. And where did Scott Lang work in the first Ant-Man? Baskin Robbins. All right, and those are all the connections that I have written out. If you were able to find some when looking back at the movies, put them in the comments. I'd love to hear them. All right, moving on to top 10 facts. Normally, they do top 10 on this show, but I figured since I'm covering 3 movies, I would do top 15, 5 for each movie. So let's get into it. Number 1, tell them about the script. We all know Dan Aykroyd is, to borrow a quote from another YouTuber,
100% butt fucking sane.
And this translates into the original script for Ghostbusters. Aykroyd's first draft took place in an alternate dimension several years in the future and would have featured several teams of Ghostbusters fighting large-scale monsters. Harold Ramis and Ivan Reitman, recognizing the budgetary restraints, urged Aykroyd to dial it back and focus on one team of Ghostbusters and how they formed. Although, I'm not going to lie, I kind of want to see that version of the movie. Now that we're kind of in the age of large-scale, big-budget action movies and franchise films, I would kind of like to see something like super off-the-wall and big-budget like that come from a Ghostbusters movie. Number 2, who are you going to call? To keep interest going during the initial release, Ivan Reitman ran a trailer that was basically the commercial used by the guys in the movie. The only difference was when people called in, they got a recorded message from Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd. They got 1,000 calls a day for several weeks. Number 3, Justice for Winston. In an earlier version of the script, Winston was meant to show up early in the film and have a much larger role as a member of the team. This was back when Eddie Murphy was set to play him. But after he dropped out to be a Beverly Hills Cop and the part was given to Ernie Hudson, the role was severely decreased. If that wasn't annoying enough, around the time of the movie's release, Ernie Hudson's address was leaked to the public, and so many fans showed up to his house, he had to move. Speaking of people being assholes to celebrities, number 4, Dickless. William Atherton, the man behind Walter Peck, did not have it easy after the film's release. Atherton has gone on record saying he couldn't go out to bars or other public places after the movie because people kept trying to pick fights with him. On top of this, he would be walking down the street and various people would shout "Dickless" at him, which, as funny as that sounds on paper, is actually really sad, and I can only hope to God that that's still not happening to him. Number 5, Cameo Busters. Several notable cameos appear in the film. When the containment unit blows up, you can see famous porn star Ron Jeremy in the onlooking crowd. Casey Kasem, the original voice of Shaggy, and Larry King both make appearances during the montage scene, reporting on the Ghostbusters' success. Even the director himself, Ivan Reitman, cameos as the voice of Zool.
There is no Dana, only Soul.
What a lovely singing voice you must have.
There are even more cameos sprinkled throughout the Ray Parker Jr. Ghostbusters music video, including, but not limited to, Chevy Chase, John Candy, Danny DeVito, and Peter Falk. Number 6. Tonal shift. In between the release of the first and second movie, the Real Ghostbusters animated series released in 1986. It was geared primarily towards kids and was mainly an excuse to sell more toys. When they saw how successful the cartoon was, Aykroyd, Ramis, and Reitman made an effort to tone down the adult aspects of the first movie to appeal to their new, younger audience. There was little to no smoking, very little swearing, hardly any drinking, and not many sexual innuendos. There were also a lot of aspects of the show that were carried over into the sequel, such as Janine's character design and Slimer being more toned down and acting like a pet. Number 7. Vigo's voice. While Wilhelm von Umberg provided the physical performance for Vigo, all of his lines were dubbed by Max von Sydow. Umberg did actually record all of his lines for Vigo, but they were dubbed later on in production because, he sounded like this.
Vigo, the scourge of Carpathia, the sorrow of Moldavia, command you. On the mountain of skulls and the castle of pain, I sit on the throne of blood.
Apparently, Humberg wasn't happy about this. When he found out, he stormed out of the premiere in anger, which I think is kind of hilarious. Number 8, family ties. You might remember this kid in the opening scene of Ghostbusters 2.
My dad says you guys are full of crap.
Jason.
Well, some people have trouble believing in the paranormal.
No, he just says you guys are full of crap, and that's why you went out of business.
Well, that's actually Ivan Reitman's son, Jason, the eventual director of Ghostbusters Afterlife. On top of that, Ivan's daughter, Catherine, makes an appearance as the girl with the puppy in Egon's lab. Number 9, there is no Ray. A scene where Ray is driving Ecto-1A recklessly after being possessed by Vigo was filmed but not used in the final cut. You can still see traces of this scene during the montage sequence when Ray runs a red light and Peter and Egon look concerned in the back seat. Number 10, Command Me Lord. Peter MacNicol had a big hand in creating the character of Janos in the initial script. Janos was a very lackluster villain named Jason at the start, but it was MacNicol's decision to make him the art restorer and have him come from Carpathia, which is how he knows so much about the painting of Vigo. MacNicol also spent several hours perfecting the accent as well as creating a whole mythology for Carpathia. Number 11, The Road to Ghostbusters 3. Anyone who has followed this franchise for long enough will know that the road getting to Ghostbusters 3 has been long, winding, and very, very complicated. Several rejected pitches and failed scripts have resurfaced over the years with multiple names attached to them. One of the most well-known involved the Ghostbusters entering an alternate hellish version of Manhattan and going up against Satan himself. Another involved Ray and Winston training a newer, younger team of Ghostbusters. Multiple drafts had Bill Murray killed off and assisting the team as a ghost. The closest thing fans got to a completed Ghostbusters 3 was the video game in 2009. 6 years later, we would see the development of Ghost Corp at Sony, and a reboot of Ghostbusters, as well as multiple other projects, were put into production. And we all know how that turned out. All those projects fell through after Ghostbusters 2016 flopped. And that brings us to Ghostbusters Afterlife. Number 12, Busted Bridges. When Ghostbusters Afterlife was announced, one thing that split fans down the middle was the decision to wipe the 2016 reboot from the canon. One person who didn't take too kindly to that was Leslie Jones, who played Patty in the film. She took to Twitter saying, "So insulting, like fuck us, we didn't count. So annoying, such a dick move." Jason Reitman actually spoke in favor of the 2016 film, thanking Paul Feig for kicking down the door on what a Ghostbuster or who a Ghostbuster could be. So hopefully there's no bad feelings between them, and now that all the fans are kind of happy and the hype around the 2016 one has died down, we can all sort of chill. 13, The Reluctant Murray. Bill Murray was very hesitant about returning for Ghostbusters Afterlife. He was actually one of the biggest reasons Ghostbusters 3 didn't get off the ground sooner. He eventually decided to return because, as he says, the script is good. It has lots of emotion in it. It's got a lot of family in it, with lines that are really interesting. It's gonna work. Number 14, Practical Terror. While Ghostbusters 2016 relied heavily on CG for their ghosts, Afterlife has promised to go back to using practical effects wherever possible, such as with the terror dogs. Number 15, lore expansion. Ghostbusters Afterlife has advertised the return of Gozer, but one thing that hasn't been mentioned as much is that it's the first on-screen appearance of Ivo Shandor, the Gozer cult leader who was referenced in the first movie and also built Dana's apartment. He first appeared briefly in the Ghostbusters video game and has had a major role in the Ghostbusters comics, but this will be his first time appearing in a Ghostbusters movie. And he'll also be played by J.K. Simmons. So yeah, those are 15 facts about the Ghostbusters trilogy. So we're gonna get right into favorite scenes. And I figured instead of splitting them up by movie, I would go from like, you know, least, quote unquote, least favorite to favorite, just to make it a little bit easier. So the one that I have at the bottom is Lewis getting attacked by the terror dogs from the first movie. I just love Lewis constantly getting the short end of the stick in that first movie. This is at this point in the movie, he's been locked out of a place 4 times. We see him like constantly getting locked out of his apartment, and this is now the 4th time that's happened when he's trying to get into the restaurant. And I also kind of found it kind of both funny and creepy that none of the people in the restaurant notice or see the terror dog. So they just see this crazy guy screaming or looking like he's getting attacked, but nothing is happening. So they all just go back to eating. I thought that was really funny. And then seeing the aftermath of that, of Lewis as Vince Clortho just running around like a crazy person, is just absolute gold to me. This next one is from Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it is, of course, Walmart. Is it a blatant product placement? Yes. Did those little mini marshmallow men kind of overstay their welcome? Definitely. Did I laugh out loud when I was watching them, you know, gleefully eviscerate each other? Absolutely. I really liked that scene. It was a lot funnier in the movie than in the trailer. The chase, and obviously it led to a really nice chase with the terror dog, and also one of the best like running things that is consistent throughout the rest of the movie is Paul Rudd's car window is shattered early on from testing the ghost trap. So when he's running away from the terror dog, instead of opening up the door, he just jumps through the windshield because there's no glass in front of it. That is a really funny detail. Next one that I have up here is from Ghostbusters 2, the courtroom scene. I honestly, like, this is one of the few, like, genuinely funny moments in Ghostbusters 2. And it's funny because it just keeps kind of escalating. Like, for one, we get the introduction, or the reintroduction of Lewis as the guy's lawyer, and that on its own is just funny, seeing this like weaselly guy trying to put together a good case for them. And you have these little details like the Venkman feeding him things to say, and he'll just like casually like look back like, what? Like stuff like that is really funny. And it just gets more and more just bizarre and insane between how just progressively pissed off the judge gets. Like he starts off like, he sets the tone right away when he's like, the court fails to acknowledge the existence of ghosts and yada yada and stuff like that. And then as the trial goes on, he just gets more and more pissed off for seemingly no reason until the Scolari brothers get loose, and he's like, oh, you gotta do something. So I really enjoyed that scene. Next scene I have is also from Ghostbusters 2, is the subway tunnel scene. Particularly the moment with all of the severed heads surrounding them. Like there are a bunch of different like things that happen, like the ghost train running over Winston and all of them like falling into the river of slime and stuff like that. But the severed heads really took me by surprise. Like so much of the movie was like so toned down and so family friendly that seeing a genuinely like creepy scene, it was a nice change of pace. I actually really enjoyed that one. Coming in third place for favorite scenes is from Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it is the last 10 to 15 minutes. And I will honestly say, you are one of those people who have been waiting 30 years for Ghostbusters 3 with the original cast, this scene will make the movie for you, basically. It's a really great climax. Yeah, it's a bit familiar in that it's trying to defeat Gozer again, but it's got enough new shit in it to still make it exciting. You've got the cool chase with the Ecto-1, with the terror dogs. Phoebe gets her kind of like I am Iron Man moment where she like fights off against Gozer. And the tribute to Harold Ramis at the end was absolutely sweet and touching. And it felt very symbolic in a way that in both the story and in real life, both Egon and Harold Ramis can both kind of rest easy now that they've done their part and they've been given a proper like ending to both the character and the person. Second place, also from Afterlife, is the police station scene. This is right after they've just finished catching Muncher. There is some really great stuff all throughout that scene. For one, we get the conversation between Phoebe and Dan Aykroyd talking about sort of what happened, why the Ghostbusters split up, and what happened to Egon. Was a really great use of exposition and showing basically what happened after the movies. There are also some really funny things like sprinkled throughout, like Podcast being excited to be in jail. Like I thought that was funny, and Lucky in the opposite cell messing with Trevor. But I think the thing that made that scene for me was when they're talking with Sheriff Bokeem Woodbine. I've never seen that actor in anything else before, but when they're talking to the sheriff about trying to keep the stuff, and Phoebe's trying to warn him about, we caught a ghost today and there's going to be more coming if you don't be careful. And he's like, oh, you're starting to sound like your lunatic grandfather. And then she pulls out the proton pack and points it at him. I'm like, wow. Like that was probably one of the most like gangster things I've seen in a Ghostbusters movie. And it also is kind of parallel with Egon because like, and just really shows that she really is her grandfather's granddaughter, because Egon was very poised and very serious, and we didn't really see him lash out. The only time that we ever saw him like get physical with anyone or threaten anyone was when in the first one, when Walter Peck was having them arrested. He's like, have these men arrested, and he's like your mother, and attacks them. And this was basically Phoebe's equivalent to that. That's the first time we actually see her like lash out at someone, which was pretty cool to see, if I'm being honest. And my number one favorite scene is from the original. It's the elevator conversation. I honestly, if you want to show someone Ghostbusters who isn't really like, doesn't really know what to expect and is kind of like apprehensive, although I don't know why they would be, because Ghostbusters is such a household name, but if you ever run into that type of person, show them the elevator scene, and I feel like that will sell them on the movie. Because first of all, I was not too shocked to find that when I was doing research that most of that scene was improvised. But on top of that, I think it's just like the perfect sort of juxtaposition from, this badass, like they just get the call from the hotel, and you see the shot of the car driving off into the night. And when they're talking to the hotel manager, Ray is even like, oh yeah, we handle this thing all the time. And then that's instantly followed up with them in the elevator, and Ray says,
it's just occurred to me, we really haven't had a completely successful test of this equipment.
I blame myself.
So do I.
That is just really funny. And little details like Egon and Peter backing up when they turn on the proton packs it's such a small scene as well. And it's not like, it's not one that I see most people like talking about. Like everyone obviously talks about, the climax or like everything else that happens in the hotel or the montage or things like that. But it's those little moments that kind of make that movie what it is. But that's my number one. Let us know what your favorite scenes from Ghostbusters are in the comments below. And let's move on to favorite quotes. All right, favorite lines, and these are in no particular order. In Ghostbusters 2, I really enjoyed the line,
"Bet those science chicks really dig that large cranium of yours, huh?"
I think they're more interested in my epididymis.
For those of you who might have failed biology, the epididymis is a highly convoluted duct between the testes along which sperm passes to the vas deferens. So not only is it a hilarious almost that's what she said type of line, but it is scientifically accurate, which fits in with Egon's character, which just makes it all the more funny. In Afterlife, when they first get to Egon's old house, Callie says, "Phoebe, be a dear and break into your grandfather's house." I just love that because it's just so nonchalant and just really funny. This one's from the original. For whatever reason,
call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason.
I thought that was a very good line because it was clearly, meant to be sarcastic. This is after they've just been thrown out of the university and Venkman's trying to talk up Ray into going into ghost hunting. And he says that almost sarcastically, but even the franchise itself has now used that line in a different context because they in the first trailer for Afterlife, that line was spoken and it was meant to sound serious.
Call it fate, call it luck, call it karma. I believe that everything happens for a reason.
Another one from the original when they're about to take on Gozer and Peter says,
"Well, whatever it is, it's got to get by us." Right. Go get her, Ray.
I really love him throwing Ray under the bus. The look that they gave each other is just perfect. Plus, it was a nice callback to earlier in the film when they go to the library and Ray says, "Get her," when they're trying to get the library ghost. And then that's what scares them and gets them sent out. Another one from the original I really enjoyed.
"You had your chance to cooperate, but you thought it'd be more fun to insult me. Well, now it is my turn, wise ass." Just
because it's just the perfect representation of how much of a snarky asshole Peck is. And even when Peter Venkman tries talking back to him and the cop tells him to be quiet, and Walter Peck is like, if he does that again, you can shoot him. It's like one of those trying to, because you're in a place of authority, you can you think it's okay to tell other people how to do their job, one of those types of I guess arrogant things. I don't know, it just makes him such a lovably hateable character. Again from Afterlife when Callie brings Phoebe to school and she's like, "You like school, don't you?" And Phoebe replies, "I like learning. This is a state-sponsored work camp for delinquents." I just felt like that was Phoebe's equivalent of the neighborhood as a demilitarized zone. Just a very well thought out, snarky comment describing the situation. I thought that was very funny. Later on in the movie, when they're going into the Shandor mines to look for Gozer, Trevor says something like, "I thought Gozer was a she," and then I think Phoebe replies, "Gozer isn't a he or she," and then Lucky says, "Pretty woke for 3000 BC." I just thought that is something that, a 2021 teenage Ghostbuster would say. And it was a great way to, remind the audience that Gozer can take whatever form it wants. And that was just a very 2021 way of describing it. So, but my favorite lines have to be anything that comes out of Janosch's mouth.
Everything you're doing is bad. I want you to know this.
This is one where I couldn't pick one single line. They're all my favorite.
Yes, a child. A child. A child?
Janosch in Ghostbusters 2 is kind of what Lewis was in Ghostbusters 1. Just very, very Weasley secondary character. Just all of his lines are very random and just weird.
Oh, command me, Lord. Do you need anything? You know? You want me to come in? Why am I drippings with goo?
But the way that he delivers them with the voice and everything is just so perfect.
Yes, we don't go around altering liable afterwards, Dr. Ranklin go. Yes, I think no. Yes, the joyfulness is over. He's kidding.
Well, you're not going to get a green card with that attitude, pal.
I, Vigo, the scourge of Carpathia.
No, you've told me this. The scourge.
The sorrow of Moldavia.
Sorrows, I've heard all of this. Yes.
Command you.
Command me, Lord.
Yes, the pain, the suffering, I know this. You are the buzzing of flies to him. Stuff like that is just awesome. All right, scene stealers. This is the big one. I don't know if Durden is still salty about the Howard the Duck episode, so maybe he shouldn't have given me the power to choose a scene stealer this time. I'm pretty confident with the one I chose. I have 3 honorable mentions and then obviously my number 1. So we'll go through the honorable mentions first. The first one is Rick Moranis. I think a lot of people sleep on Rick Moranis. I think a lot of people forget that he is a really good and funny and talented actor. I mean, granted, I know he kind of is typecast as playing the same character, sort of the like Weasley guy that all the like bad shit happens to. And he is kind of that way in Ghostbusters. He's, you know, the one that you laugh at because, you know, oh, he keeps getting locked out of his house. He's like the sort of nerdy, like, insurance guy or whatever. But, I mean, he's still entertaining to watch. And, like, and even in Ghostbusters 2, he is kind of like the de facto hero of that movie. Even though he didn't really do anything, he still believes that he did something, and seeing that is kind of heartwarming. And I really do miss Rick Moranis. Like, it sucks that he retired from acting. And I mean, the last thing I saw him in, it was like a Mint Mobile commercial with Ryan Reynolds. So I understand, you know, he's getting up there in years. He probably doesn't want to come back to it, but I wish he'd come back like every once in a while because he's pretty good. In third place is Peter McNichol as Janosch. Janosch is one of, if not the best parts of Ghostbusters 2. Like, anytime that he shows up, I just have a big dumb grin on my face. You know, as I was talking about earlier in the facts, like, the dedication to making that role what it was from McNichol is just really commendable. Because I honestly didn't know that half of that stuff was his idea. Making him the art restorer, making him have the accent, giving him this, like, backstory or whatever. I just thought that was pre-written for him, and it came out of his performance. But knowing that was basically all him is pretty cool. It's pretty cool, and he is just so entertaining whenever he shows up. Coming in at a very, very close second. Like, she could have been the scene stealer if I wanted her to, but McKenna Grace from Ghostbusters Afterlife. Everyone who has talked about this movie already has said that it is her movie. She steals every scene, and they are absolutely right. And what's great is she doesn't do, like, she's not like the daughters from Bill and Ted 3. She doesn't try to do an Egon impression. Like, she is very much her own character. She is very poised. She's kind of socially awkward. She makes all these really cringy dad jokes, which are just absolutely adorable, and some of which are genuinely kind of funny. But, you know, she's also super smart. She loves science. She can be a badass when she wants to be, and, you know, she is just super endearing and just cool to watch. And I mean, if going forward into the future, if she's the one that is going to be leading this next batch of, like, Ghostbusters movies, I'm more than okay with that, because she was one of, if not the highlight of Ghostbusters Afterlife for sure. With that said, there can only be one. And before I say what my number 1 is, I'm going to do a quick recap of who's made it on the board so far. Episode 1 was Joker. Joaquin Phoenix, deservedly so, made his way on the board. Episode 2, The Invention of Lying, Jennifer Gardner. Episode 3, Howard the Duck, Chip Zien made his way onto the board, much to Durden's chagrin, much to me and Royal's joy. Episode 4, Candyman, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II made his way up there. Again, deservedly so. Great performance. And Episode 5, the Halloween special for the people under the stairs, Brandon Quinton Adams made his way up there. And with that said, I would like to award the Scene Stealer Award for Ghostbusters to Mr. Harold Ramis. And I know what a lot of people are going to say already. It's, I'm just giving him a sympathy vote because the actor is dead, but that's not it at all. I genuinely think that he is the best performer and the best character from the entire trilogy. Like, everyone says, Peter is their favorite because he has all the snarky remarks and he has all the great one-liners and he's got this sarcastic sense of humor. But I think people really overlooked how important, Egon and how important Harold Ramis was, not just to the cast, but also just to the franchise in general. Like, his involvement in the writing process. He was one of the ones, along with Ivan Reitman, that was putting the reins on Aykroyd, saying you got to tone this back a little bit. And beyond that, his contributions to the film in front of the camera were just as great. I think Egon might even be funnier than Bill Murray, just because of how straight he's playing it. He doesn't need to be super dorky like Ray, and he doesn't need to be snarky and over the top like Venkman. He is his own bag of comedic genius, in my opinion. I think he has, looking back at it, he has a lot of really great lines. Even in Ghostbusters 2, he has a lot of really decent lines. And in Ghostbusters 3, especially in Afterlife, the fact that he can make such a big impact without even properly appearing on screen until the last 10 minutes, but also without even saying a word, is pretty powerful. And that not only, attests to the visual effects work that went into making that happen, but also really speaks volumes as to what kind of an impact Harold Ramis had on the Ghostbusters franchise. And I don't know, I might catch flack for this. People may say that I'm speaking out of my ass here, but honestly, after having revisited both movies in the lead up to Afterlife, I genuinely would not have put anyone else at number 1 except for Harold Ramis. So welcome to the board, Mr. Harold Ramis. You are the scene stealer for the Ghostbusters trilogy. You should be very proud of yourself. All right, with that said, it's time for Cast Crew Review. In just a moment, we'll be joined by Windy City Ghostbusters President Steve Sandrowski and fellow member Greg Bollendorf. So I hope you enjoy. All right, guys, for this special edition of Cast Crew Review, I decided to call up some very special individuals. If you live in the Chicagoland area, they're here to help you with all of your paranormal extermination needs. They are the Windy City Ghostbusters. You can find them on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. I'll make sure all of those were left down in the description. Guys, thank you so much for coming on here to talk with me today. First, just go, introduce yourselves, say your name, and I guess your rank in the Ghostbusters.
Steve, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure. My name's Steve Sandrowski, and I am the president of the Windy City Ghostbusters.
And I am Greg Bollendorf. I am just an active member. I hold no ranking yet.
Awesome. Thank you guys again for coming on. I guess first question for those who may not be familiar, what is, or I guess I should say, who are the Windy City Ghostbusters?
Yeah, so the Windy City Ghostbusters are a charity organization based out of the Chicagoland area. And we're not just in the city, we're in the suburbs as well. And we help raise money for multiple different charities, mainly La Rabida Children's Hospital in Chicago. But we've also raised money for Make-A-Wish and multiple other charities.
Awesome. How did this idea sort of come about? When did you guys come up with the idea of just, hey, let's dress up as Ghostbusters and do awesome stuff for the community?
So the Windy City Ghostbusters were actually formed out of another team, which we've just reunited with, the Ghostbusters Chicago division. And that was about 9 years ago at this point, I believe. And, you know, we had so many members, we decided to split the two teams up. And now that things are kind of rolling on all cylinders, and Ghostbusters is getting really big again, and seemed like no better time to bring everybody back together and work towards the greater good.
Awesome. Speaking of how many members you have, how many would you say you've kind of amassed over the years?
So combined with our rookies, which are unofficial members, and we have about 100 members. So it's quite a large group that we've got here.
All right, awesome. What is the application process for something like that like? Like, how would, if one wanted to, how would one become a Windy City Ghostbuster?
You know, it's actually a lot easier than I think most people would assume. All it takes is a jumpsuit at bare minimum, and we have a little rookies program based off of Facebook, where we'll keep in touch and let you know what events are coming up and invite you out, and you can join us on a Chicagoland bust, as we like to say.
Awesome. How long have each of you been involved with the Ghostbusters?
So for myself, I've been doing ghostbusting for like 14 years now, at this team and with others. So that's kind of my experience and background. I think I'm one of the most tenured Ghostbusters on the team.
Yeah, I'm just a young pup. I've only been active for about a year now. So not as much insight and history that Steve has, but glad to be aboard.
Fair enough. I did want to ask, because it's not just you guys. When I was doing research, I saw that there were Ghostbuster teams pretty much all over the country. Were you guys involved in that at all? Were you like, hey, we want to branch this out to other countries and other states and stuff like that? Or were these just, fans doing, this of their own volition?
Yeah, it's just kind of, there's so many Ghostbuster fans worldwide that it was almost natural that, a team would pop up in the UK. There's teams that pop up in Canada and Mexico and all over, all across the US. And there's no, unlike the 501st, there's no real overarching group for us. This is just kind of a bunch of individual teams, but we're all doing charity work for our local individual charities, and we're all kind of keeping in touch just due to the nature of the hobby.
Awesome. So since you did bring up all the charity work, which is fantastic, by the way, that's awesome what you guys are doing. If you are allowed to say, and feel free not to if you don't want to, but how much would you say you've raised for charity, whether it be from your main one or any of the others that you've partnered with?
Man, it's such a hard number to come up with a specific, because we raise it at when we do birthday parties, we get individual donations there. When we do conventions, we get donations over the weekend. I know for a fact we did a trivia bowl online for the past 2 years that was attended by teams across the country virtually. And last year's trivia bowl, we raised $6,000. And this year we raised $3,000. So, I mean, we're raising quite a bit.
That's awesome. You guys have also done multiple events. You've gone to, I've seen over Facebook, you guys have done multiple conventions. I've seen you walking in like parades. Did you guys do the Festival of Lights thing that was, I think, yesterday?
We did not. Unfortunately, we missed out on that, but we did do the Arts in the Dark parade around Halloween time, and this week we're going to be doing the Thanksgiving Day parade.
Nice. What are some of the highlights of doing like events like that?
Do you know what? I'm gonna let Greg take this question because he's
go for it. I feel bad. Greg hasn't had a chance.
Like I said, Steve's got the knowledge and the history. I'm just a lowly guy, 1 year under my belt. So, but doing the events, it's just fun to see people's reactions and making the kids and people smile. It's something that was one of the reasons why I really joined up, was because in the past I dealt with coaching for Special Olympics, and it made you feel good helping people and seeing people, appreciate what you're doing for them. And it's the same thing being a Ghostbuster. It sounds kind of odd, but, strapping on the proton pack and marching in a parade and seeing all these kids waving at you and even their parents, hey, it's the Ghostbusters, and wanting to take pictures with you. It's just, there's something about it. It just makes you feel good.
That's awesome. Does it, I don't know how this is going to sound, but does it surprise you at all just to see how many like little kids are into Ghostbusters, that it's like expanded that far out across generations?
I'm going to take this one, Steve. As a dad,
go for it.
My son and my daughter, I've raised them, being a pop culture nerd, kind of like I am. So it really doesn't surprise me that there's people out there like me that want to instill that in their kids. And, like you said, the little ones, they're getting the same treatment that I gave my kids when they were like 3 and 4 years old, because it's really sad when my son, who's a senior in high school, comes home and he's like, we were talking about Nightmare Before Christmas in class today, and nobody had any idea what it was.
Really?
So, it's like shame on those parents, even Ghostbusters for it. It's like, what are these parents teaching their kids, But yeah, that's it. Like I said, it doesn't really surprise me, all age ranges. I mean, I even had, when we were in the 4th of July parade in Darien, there was some older gentlemen, gray hair gentlemen, and hey, Ghostbusters, all right. So, like you said, it just spans every decade.
And I mean, I guess another part of that helps is it also spans across like mediums. It's not just the 2 movies, or I guess 4 now. It's got like cartoons and video games and everything else. So what was each of your first experience kind of with Ghostbusters throughout the franchise?
Like my first introduction to Ghostbusters? Or
yes. That okay. You can remember, yeah.
Yeah. I remember watching Ghostbusters 2 on the Disney Channel back in the early 90s. When they were just licensing any kind of family-friendly type film. And I got hooked immediately. And I was like, I need to see all of this. And then the cartoons and, and then it just kind of grew and built. And now I'm here. So.
Right.
That's awesome.
Greg, how about you? For me, though, it was, I'll be honest. I think I'm one of the oldest, if not the oldest member of the team. Steve, correct me if I'm wrong. I remember.
I probably.
Yeah, I remember. I was in 6th grade. Saw Ghostbusters, the original, in the movie theater with one of my good friends at the time, and we were just so floored by the movie that afterwards we sat down. We wrote up a contract that when we graduated college, we were going to raise money and we were going to open up our own ghostbusting office. I mean, I don't know why it had such an impact, but it did. And it's just one of those things that you're flipping through the TV stations, and you could, any part of the movie you could just leave it on and it could be background noise or whatever. But yeah, that was my definite first experience seeing it in the theater, the original 1984, first time.
I think and we mentioned this. Greg mentioned this in the last question. But I think just my experience and Greg's experience just show how wide of how cross-generational Ghostbusters can be, is that we both had such varied experiences with the introduction to the franchise, but we both have the same exact love for it. And I think that's what makes the film special.
Do you have like a specific moment from the franchise that is what you would say is like your favorite, that's something that stuck out to you?
Yeah, geez, there's so much there. For me, the one moment that's my favorite will always be the courtroom scene from Ghostbusters 2. There's just something about, like, yeah, they're in trouble, but they did the right thing in a weird way, and then the judge is finally like, okay, yeah, you were right, just go do your thing, and they're heroes. I don't know, that's just always kind of stuck out in my head.
I really can't pinpoint one specific area. Honestly though, probably, like I said, seeing it for the first time in the theater, probably when the gray lady turns and scares the bejesus out of Aykroyd, Murray, and Ramis. That scene probably was like biggest jump scare of the time. And it's funny to watch. We saw Afterlife on Thursday night, and there was one scene, and I knew there was going to be something coming up, and I kind of looked down the row at my daughter, who's 14, and she like jumped out of her skin. I'm like, you couldn't see it coming.
Yeah, not to jump too ahead with Afterlife, but I was very curious. I do distinctly remember a lot of like young kids in my screenings, and I was occasionally like looking over to like see their reaction, and they were loving the hell out of it. One thing I did want to like just briefly touch on, I actually found out about the Windy City Ghostbusters, about you guys, through the Nostalgia Critics Ghostbusters 2016 review. And I don't want to dwell too much on that, but I was very curious, like, because I'm sure you guys were definitely paying attention when all that was going on. What was it like, kind of being a Ghostbusters fan when there was just so much like negativity and like hatred being thrown around on the internet?
Man, it was tough. Sony invited a bunch of us out to that red carpet premiere as well. And I remember the excitement of getting to go see it because it's a new Ghostbusters. But it was kind of tainted because of all of the anger leading up to it, and the unwarranted kind of just nastiness that the fan community just kind of put on this film and put on these actors and this crew. Was it my favorite film? No, but it opened the door to more Ghostbusters. And I think that's, if you look at the overall picture, without that film, we wouldn't have the film that we have today. And that's just kind of the reality of it. There were members that quit. There were people that hung up their gear, female members that I'm good friends with that hung up their gear for a long time because they were tired of wearing their gear to events and hearing, oh, I didn't like the lady Ghostbusters. And that's tough. That's really tough to see good people doing good work just kind of thrown under the bus unnecessarily. But luckily it seems like we've gotten past that. So and that's really all I can hope for at this point.
Yeah, it's really a shame to hear that, because I mean, like, if you don't like the movie, that's fine, but you don't need to like hurl like abuse at people who do enjoy it. Like, not everything is going to please everyone, and it shouldn't be an issue of, oh, women can do this and women can't do this and blah, blah, blah. So I imagine it was pretty, like, almost kind of embarrassing seeing all of that go on.
Horribly embarrassing. And it left a big kind of scar on the community. because that was so publicly talked about, and so widely known that, everybody was just kind of going in on this film. And that's been a hard thing, I think, for us to recover from. I think we're getting there. It's not completely gone. But I think we're slowly moving towards this point where we can kind of get past all the anger and vitriol that was thrown into the universe in 2016.
Yeah, it seems like, at the very least, it seems like the hype around it has kind of died down, especially with this new one, which I do want to move swiftly on to. You both have gotten a chance to see it, right?
Yes.
Yes.
So first off, just general, what did you guys think of it?
It
you
brought
go
me back
first.
to the theater. It brought me back to that 1984 theater when I was in 6th grade. Honest to God, I mean, Jason did a bang up job with it, and just sitting there, and like I said, my son's a senior in high school, and he and I were just sitting there looking at each other back and forth. Oh yeah, yep. The parallels between the original and what was on the screen in front of us. It was just like, yeah, we did, yeah.
Yeah, I was very much the same. I was just kind of like, I never got to experience the first two films originally in the theaters. And, I was lucky enough to have the opportunity to go to New York for the world premiere of it and represent our team. And to see it in a theater with about 100 people, other Ghostbusters, and just to feel the energy and that excitement and the joy and the pride of watching, our childhood heroes and our childhood franchise just kind of show up on the screen again was phenomenal.
Were there what was the reaction in the theater like? Was it like just completely electric? Was there cheering? Was there applause? Was there tears?
All of the above.
Yeah, all of it. There was all of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was I've been to Endgame. I went to Endgame when it came out in theaters that opening night, and it was like 100 times more than what I experienced at Endgame. Like that was just the kind of energy, just the happiness and the tears and the like after it was over, like people were just hugging each other because they're like, yeah, this is what we've waited for 32 years.
Right.
Like, and that wait was worth it.
That is awesome. That is so cool to hear. What was your favorite scene from the movie, if you can pick one?
Ooh. Greg, you want to go first?
Give me about 15 minutes to process it and figure out which one it was. I don't know. The first like slap in the face nod that was like in your face was when Phoebe pulls out the Crunch Bar from Egon's jumpsuit. I mean, that was like, wow, you deserve it. I'm like, there it is, And also, like I said, my son and I back and forth when Phoebe was in the apartment, she had the headlamp on, and she kind of turned and looked at, I think her mom was coming in, Nick's like pointing at the screen. I'm like, at least she thinks she's telling the truth, I mean, just like I said, like the little nuance, little Easter eggs that were there. It was like, yeah. I mean, like I said, I can't pinpoint one favorite. Steve, you've seen it multiple times. I've only seen it once, so I can't pinpoint one scene. So the whole movie was just like a thank you.
For me, the one thing that gets me each and every time is when you see Egon again in his spectral form.
Right.
And there's this one shot where you see all four of them side by side one last time. And that shot gets me so much. Like growing up, Egon was a hero. He was like a childhood hero for me. Because, I was a nerdy kid and he was a nerd, but he was like, he came up with the plans that saved the world. And he made being a nerd cool. So to see him one more time, like that was probably the greatest thing in that film, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I had marathoned the first two in preparation for not just the movie but this episode, and yeah, I mean, seeing that last 10 minutes was like, I mean, it was emotional for me, but I could only imagine how emotional it was for, you know, people like you guys who have grown up with it and been there, like, almost, like, in some cases almost since the beginning. And Greg, when it got to when she pulled out the Crunch Bar, that was one of many times where I was like, oh, my heart.
Box. It was like,
yeah,
uh-huh.
See, that Crunch Bar was a 1-2 punch, because it was like, oh, Crunch Bar, oh, it's the glasses too.
Yeah,
right. See, I haven't seen it multiple times. I forgot about that.
Who was your favorite character? Because this movie introduced a lot of them.
For me, I like Podcast. He was kind of a hoot. I liked him, and I don't know if we'll see him again, but Gruberson, I mean, he was making me laugh. Paul Rudd, sexiest man alive. I mean,
yeah,
he had some good scenes in there as well.
Yeah, for me, I mean, obviously, you know, Phoebe was a phenomenal character. Kind of the story arc that they built for her was, you know, I think it was really well done. But man, Podcast stole every scene in that film.
Right.
So yeah, I got to go with him.
What do you think, or I guess, what do you hope Ghostbusters fans take away from this movie?
Man, I hope that the fans realize that Ghostbusters isn't just for people. Ghostbusters isn't just, you know, Egon, Ray, Peter, and Winston. Like, it's about being a team. It's about anyone that's a team can be a Ghostbuster. And I think that this movie really showed that. Like, it doesn't have to be men, you know, it doesn't have to be adults. It can be, anybody can be a Ghostbuster. And I think that's so important to recognize.
And I mean, you guys have like preached that message like pretty much since the beginning. You've had like people from all walks of life, all ages, all genders as a part of your group. So, I mean, if anyone's gonna like, you know, if anything's gonna resonate from that movie, it would be that message, and that message that you guys have also, you know, practiced so well.
Yeah, you know, I mean, we're lucky that Chicago is such a diverse city anyway. But it's, you know, Ghostbusters kind of unites everybody, because everybody has their one scene or their one moment or their character, whatever. But I think this movie really kind of showed it. This movie showed, hey, like, it's not the male Ghostbusters, it's not the lady Ghostbusters. Ghostbusters is anyone that wants to be a Ghostbuster.
Right.
Well said. This is a bit of a big one, but why do you think, you know, Ghostbusters has been around for over 30 years in multiple different forms and multiple different mediums. Why do you think it has lasted this long?
You know, I think the overall idea of friendship, which was at the core of Ghostbusters, resonates. You know, yeah, they were doing a weird job. They were doing some crazy things. But it's about four friends that are just kind of working together to solve problems. And I think that everybody has kind of had those moments where we're like, hey, I've got my three closest friends. Let's do something together. And that's all Ghostbusters really is. What about you, Greg?
I'm listening to you and I'm going, yeah, that's about right.
Very, very well said. Guys, thank you so much for coming on, and I greatly appreciate not just coming on and talking to me, but all of the great work that you guys do for the community. You guys are awesome. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with? We got a bunch of Ghostbusters fans that'll be watching this. Anything you want to leave us with? Any parting words? Any events that you'd like to tease? Just anything at all.
Yeah, well, I mean, we've aside from the Thanksgiving Day Parade coming up on December 3rd in Clarendon Hills, Illinois, we'll be at the Holiday Walk and Market. And I believe that will probably be our last event of the year. And make sure you follow us on social media. Windy City Ghostbusters. You can find us. We're on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. And we're open to events. And we just ask for a donation to charity. And we'll show up and do whatever you need us to do. But yeah, Greg, do you have anything to add?
Ready to believe you.
Very well said.
You always follow me up perfectly.
Guys, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure talking with you guys. It's been great hearing sort of a fan's point of view. And one last thing, I have got a couple of friends floating around the Harold Washington Library trying to get back to their bodies. So if you could send someone over there to take care of that would be greatly appreciated.
I mean, it's a holiday week for me, but Greg, since I mean, you're a little bit newer, so I'm going to send you out.
I mean, it's no rush. I'm, just thank you guys so much.
We'll check it out. Thank you for having us.
Thank you once again to Steve and Greg for taking the time to talk to us. That was a really great conversation. And now let's move on to the review portion. Fucks Given. I decided to fuse Room for Improvement and Fucks Given into one category or section for this episode because we got a lot to talk about. So starting off with the first Ghostbusters, the original 1984 classic. I don't think there's anything I can say about it that hasn't been said already. It's a classic for a reason. Everything about it just works. It was the perfect combination of great comedic timing, a talented cast, an engaging story, clever writing, and effects that, while definitely dated in certain places, fit into the B horror movie world the film sets itself in. It's one of those movies that really gets better with age. You can watch it multiple times over and get something new out of it each time. It's lightning in a bottle that I don't think can ever be replicated, no matter how many sequels, reboots, and spin-offs they try to do. And I can't see myself giving it any less than a 4.5 out of 5. And with all that in mind, that should have meant Ghostbusters 2 should have been just as good. It was the same cast, it was the same creative team, the same world, the same story, but all that familiarity ended up working against the film, because instead of progressing the story and characters forward, it feels like they hit a reset button just so the characters could go through the same arcs all over again. The Ghostbusters are seen as frauds and have to earn back their credibility, again. Peter and Dana have to reestablish their relationship, again. Winston is just kind of there, again. The guys go up against a stuffy government official, again. There's a giant thing walking through New York City, again. It feels like Ghostbusters with all the bite taken out. The original Ghostbusters never felt pandering at all. It could appeal to any audience, both young or old. But with the sequel, it felt like they were too afraid to go as far as they did in the original, so they just dialed it back way too far. It feels so corporate and cynical, almost like the Space Jam of Ghostbuster movies.
Get your Hanes on, lace up your Nikes, grab your Wheaties and your Gatorade, and we'll pick up a Big Mac on the way to the ballpark.
Okay, maybe not that bad, but it's pretty close.
Oh, you mean the Ghostbusters hot beverage thermal mug and free balloons for the kids?
But while it wasn't great, there are some aspects that I enjoyed. The villains are all entertaining, the effects absolutely improved, and at the end of the day, it's still these four legends on screen together again. It's just a shame they weren't given a better movie to be in. By no means awful, but nowhere near the quality of the first. I'm giving it a 2.5 out of 5.
And finally, we have Ghostbusters Afterlife, and while it may not be as good as the original, it does do a great job at wrapping a nice bow on this trilogy and this team, while leaving the door open for more teams in the future. While the story does borrow a bit from the original, it's still enough of its own thing. The fact that it focuses on kids doesn't seem forced or pandering, and it hammers home the message that anyone can be a Ghostbuster. Most of the characters introduced here are a great breath of fresh air for the franchise. Phoebe is very easy to root for and commands every scene she's in, while Podcast is an absolute joy to watch. It's kind of a shame that the rest of the characters didn't really get that much to do. Lucky is just kind of there to be the snarky love interest, and Trevor is just there to drive the car and have stuff explained to him. I appreciated that the film didn't rely too heavily on callbacks, although some definitely work better than others.
Sir, don't I get a phone call?
Yeah, sure, kid. The question is, who are you gonna call?
And while the final act did feel very copy-paste, it works for the story and still makes for a satisfying climax. Performances across the board are great, the action is fun, the film is humorous when it needs to be, and heartfelt when it should be. It's a solid film that bookends the trilogy very well, and I think Jason Reitman should be very proud of himself for what he's made. I'd give it a 4 out of 5.
And with all that said, the question now remains, should there be any more Ghostbusters movies, or should this be it? Well, I mean, if you've seen the post-credit scenes of Afterlife, without going into too much detail, I think it's fair to say that there will be more Ghostbusters movies coming. I mean, the opening of the movie has like the friggin' Ghost Corpse logo. So they're not just gonna do a one and done. Like, this movie is clearly making money, and the reviews for it have been glowingly positive so far. So I feel like this was a nice sort of testing the waters. Like, let's see if we can get the fans back on our side before now we can expand it and revitalize those plans that we had tried to start with the 2016 one, but ended up falling through because the movie ended up tanking. And I feel like if that's the reason why a lot of the movie felt very like familiar and back to basics, then I feel like that can be forgiven. But going forward, I would really like to see, new stories and new enemies being faced. I would like to see crazier ideas, like instead of, hey, Gozer's coming back for the 300th time, we gotta go stop her, or it. I'd like to see, get weird, get experimental with it, send the Ghostbusters to hell, have them fight giant monsters, have them traveling through dimensions. Like, now is the time to do that. We're in the advent, as I was talking about earlier, we're in the advent of big budget blockbuster movies, and with a franchise like Ghostbusters, where literally the sky is kind of the limit, you can get away with doing some off-the-wall shit. Introduce new teams of Ghostbusters. Have crazy villains that they have to fight. Like there's only so many times we can see, the 4 Ghostbusters fight Gozer before we end up getting bored again. Like, that was the problem with Ghostbusters 2, was it was repeating too much. So if they are going to continue on this path, whether it's with Phoebe and her family, or introducing a completely new team, or having multiple teams introduced and then come together, I feel like as long as you give us a new story each time, then I don't think there should be a problem, because I feel like Ghostbusters is one of those franchises that has a lot of interesting story potential. So yeah, I am very excited to see what the future of this franchise holds. All right, moving on to coming attractions. I don't know if they wanted me to do this segment as well, but fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway. I did get a call from the Ghostbusters off camera, and they did take care of the whole library situation. So Durden and Royal should be back in their bodies in time for the Die Hard episode, which comes out this Thursday, so stay tuned for that. As well, they've also got their Matrix special on New Year's Eve, where they'll be going over all 4 Matrix films live, including the new one, Matrix Resurrections. So that's going to be super exciting. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications turned on so you can see all of that. And if for some reason you still haven't gotten your fill of Ghostbusters content, you can head on over to my channel, JamesMCD Reviews, where, against my better judgment, I will be taking a look at the only Ghostbusters movie to be absent from this breakdown, the 2016 Paul Feig version. I know, I'm sorry. I know people skin crawl when they hear that movie even be mentioned. I actually didn't watch the movie when it came out in theaters because fuck that. So I feel like now that the dust is kind of settled and the fans have gotten their Ghostbusters 3 that they've been waiting 30 years for, and everyone's just kind of chilled out, I feel like now is a really appropriate time to revisit that movie and look at what it did right and see if it was even worth all of the panda fucking monium that it got over that period of time. So yeah, check that out on my channel. I'm also going to be posting the review portions of the original trilogy to my channel in the next coming weeks as well. And then of course, reviews on all the latest upcoming movies and TV shows will be coming as they are released. I want to give another huge, sincere thank you to Steve and Greg at the Windy City Ghostbusters for coming on and talking to us today. Again, be sure to check them out at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. It's Windy City GB, I believe, across all platforms. All that stuff will be in the description. Also, make sure to donate to La Revita's Children's Hospital. That's the charity that they're partnered with. I'll leave that in the description as well. Give what you can. It helps out a great cause. I'd also like to thank my friends Jack Texera and Steve DeCruz for helping me out with filming the intro for this video. I'm gonna leave their links down in the description. And last but not least, a huge thank you to Durden and Royal for trusting me with this episode. This was probably one of the most fun I've had working on a video in a while. And I felt really honored when Durden messaged me and asked me if I could take this challenge on. So thanks again for that, guys. I really appreciate it. And of course, thank all of you for watching. If you like this video, be sure to like it. If you didn't like this video, still like it because we won't be able to tell the difference anyway. Let us know in the comments your thoughts on Ghostbusters Afterlife. Where does it rank up with the originals? And what are some of your favorite moments and memories from the Ghostbusters franchise? Let us know. Get that algorithm going with some good interactions. Be sure to subscribe with notifications turned on so you don't miss any new content. Be sure to support on Patreon, buy some TTFT merch, do whatever you can to support the guys who have supported me over this past year and a bit. And yeah, once again, thank you guys for watching. Stay safe, make good decisions, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Cheers. Ah, God. Oh. Fucking God. Oh, that does not get easier. Okay, bye.
Goodbye, 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 goodbye.
Why don't you subscribe? It'll last longer.